What's good, everybody? Welcome to the Players World podcast. Today, I have probably our biggest guest yet, Dalton Pence. And the kind of way we start this off is you just tell them who you are and then about you.
Yeah, man. So, like you mentioned, my name is Dalton. I do, seems like a lot of different stuff. I host a podcast called Locked On Louisville, which is a daily show for Louisville sports and stuff like that. Do some announcing work for Louisville. So over the stadium mic and stuff like that, and then just kind of some sports writing here and there. So it's a little bit of everything, man.
Yeah. Well, the main thing that I really want to get into is kind of the announcing side.
Yeah, man.
And I have one kind of big question to my lack of knowledge. And so announcing at the games, does that lead to like the broadcasting announcing, or is those two completely different things?
I mean, it can. I think it's really just a matter of like what you're trying to get into. It's with the communication degree. My biggest thing for me was I wanted to stay versatile, just
Right.
because like you can't really control what the opportunities that come your way. So it's kind of like a lot of just trying to keep your options open. The PA announcing thing just kind of came out of the blue one day.
Yeah.
And that's something that really I wasn't expecting. And when it did, I was just like, I'm going to ride with it, see what happens. I mean, thankfully, it's kind of turned into what it has now. But I think it's really just kind of all about who you know, because, you could be the best PA announcer in the world, but if you don't know the right people, it's a little bit of a different skill set. You have to show that you're versatile. You have to show that you know what you're doing, because, you could speak into a mic fine, but unless you can color commentate or, be on a broadcast, it's a little different. It's all a mental thing, though.
Right. And so with that announcing, do they look at like how you sound on the mic, and like do you have to practice that? Is that something like you go in your room and you like practice your voice or practice?
When I was younger, so when I started like a senior in high school, and it was, it's like a true rags to riches story. You imagine like it's like a party rocker live speaker, so like something you take to like a basketball gym and just like blare music off of, and like this real cheap like Hello Kitty microphone, bro. Like, it is like you couldn't get any smaller than this. And like I started doing it for my sister when she was in high school playing softball for Mercy, and I was like, you know what? I sound stupid as hell, but man, it's kind of fun. So Mercy invested in a sound system, eventually got a press box, and the AD came to me and was like, hey man, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something there. And, one thing led to another. And I think early on, I'd be in my car beforehand, just kind of practicing it out, just because it's a little different, just because the way your voice, projects and stuff like that. But, I mean, now, what is this? It's like 6 years. That's wild to me. 6 years. It's pretty natural to me. It's something that, like, I kind of, flip a switch, and I'm kind of in that headspace. So it used to be like that, but now I'm just kind of okay, man. Just put me on the mic. I don't need any warm up. Just let me go.
So when you say flip that switch, so do you have like your kind of your social voice and then also your like speaking voice?
Yeah. So like this is the regular voice that I have, but like my announcing voice is like considerably deeper to where people sometimes don't even really recognize me. Like, man, what the? Hey yo, what? And it's wild to me because people like prospective employers, I should say, are like, I don't want this to come off bad, but is that like
you?
Is that just like, can you do that for a long time, or is it like you just like being a facade and like trying to throw your voice to make it sound cool? I'm like, buddy, I could literally do it right now for you and go a full on hour conversation. And like I think over the years it's been a lot of like refining that. I've always kind of had that like little bit of a deeper side, but 6 years later I'm able to just kind of like get right into it, and it's almost like a character is how someone described it to me, and I'm like, that's kind of funny. Like I don't even think of it like that. So no, it's pretty neat. But yeah, there's definitely a difference between the social voice and the announcing voice, and a lot of it varies based upon sport as well, which one I'm doing. So
yeah, and it honestly, it seems like it takes a lot of skill, which I'm sure it does. But do you ever see yourself listening to someone else and being like, oh, you could do some announcing yourself?
Here and there. I think for me, and a lot of people will come to me, and like I've had some of the younger generation, kind of come to me and ask me pointers and stuff like that. And they're like, well, you seem kind of hesitant. I'm like, dude, I'll be honest with you, I don't look at myself in that light. Like when you come to me saying like, oh, like I look up to you or I take stuff from you, like that blows my
Yeah.
damn mind because like I'm sitting here at 24 and I'm like, where have I gone? So it's a lot different. There's been a couple people that I've kind of looked at and I'm like, hey man, have you ever thought about it? And a lot of times it's been like something along those lines,
Right.
but it's never truly been like, because I mean there's not a lot of people that are willing to get in front of a microphone,
Yeah.
in front of a handful of people and speak willingly. So it's kind of a dime a dozen, but I mean it is what it is. Like there's been a couple people that I've kind of helped along the way, but a lot of times it's been the other way around since
Yeah.
I'm still kind of young in the profession. So
do you still get nervous when you do that public speaking? Because I know, like you said, a lot of people might not want to do that or have the
Yeah.
courage to do it.
I think nervous. I think it's more of anxious, and that was kind
Yeah.
of like early on. Like now, I don't bat an eye. Like
Yeah.
public speaking, I feel like it is one of the main strengths that I've had. I don't know how I
Yeah.
came into this world with the public speaking strength, but like I was telling somebody, like I get amped up whenever I get to like announce a game at the Yum Center or
Yeah.
Cardinal Stadium because I'm like, the more people, the better. The more people, the more I thrive, and that's just wild to me. Because younger, I was like, I used to be petrified.
Yeah.
From speaking with people, and now I'm like, dude, look at me while I'm talking. Like it's
Can you feel the energy in
Oh, yeah.
arenas? Like
Oh, yeah.
after your voice? Like if you say 3 by
Yeah.
so-and-so, do you feel that energy? And it's like,
admittedly, it depends on the place because
Yeah.
sometimes fans are more into it than others.
Right.
Like announcing for Mail, like obviously their teams have been really good the
Yeah.
past couple of years. So like they draw a lot of people. Caleb Glenn draws a lot of people, and so I mean it's been fun because the energy's been there. But I've also been in gyms where it's been like this.
yeah.
And there
wow.
hasn't been much, and it's a lot harder to create the energy for a crowd. It's so much easier just being able to feed off of it because it's natural, but like creating the energy, like when COVID hit, and there were like attendance restrictions
Right.
and stuff like that. Man, it was difficult. Not only are you sitting there having to announce with a mask, which was hell on earth,
Yeah.
but also just trying to create the energy for like the lack of people there, because at the end of the day, it's all for the people that are playing.
Right.
It's all trying to create like some type of an atmosphere. Man, it was difficult. So I would rather there be like 50,000
Yeah,
people there
then-
because it's like, admittedly, it's going to be loud.
Do you
Then-
change your voice from if there's less people to more people? So like just how deep you get or how excited you get or
I wouldn't say that it varies based upon the amount of people. I think it based upon the sport. Like
Right.
like baseball is probably the deepest I can do because I don't talk that much.
Yeah.
But like volleyball or basketball, where things are just like you don't really have a lot of time to react to things,
Yeah.
so it's just kind of like flowing off the tongue. So no, baseball I can just kind of think of what I want to say and how to say it. But a lot of times announcing is like you don't get a lot of time because it may seem quick to like the average person watching it, but it's even quicker
Right.
when you're trying to, because you have to you're talking about names, you're talking about what you want to say like in the right time. So there's a lot of stuff going into it. So a lot of times you can't really think about how you're going to say something because you just have to do it.
Yeah.
So
And you have for when you do those PA announcing, you have a paper with the names on it.
Yeah.
So do you go over with somebody beforehand if somebody has kind of a difficult name, or you just kind of go in and wing it?
as a rule of thumb, I always do. For me, it's like a sense of respect.
Right.
Like, I mean, Pence isn't that hard of a name, but I mean, when I played in high school, people botched
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, man, what are you doing? Like, it's not that hard. All you had to do was ask. And like,
Right.
for me, it's like, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be that guy, because one of the most embarrassing things is saying someone's name and you can hear the crowd, like them like,
yelling.
sit there and correct you. And I'm like, damn. I'm like, my bad, man. And I mean, if I make a mistake, it's only a one-time thing. So I mean, like I usually try to make it a point to. I mean, I'm not a big guy that looks at rosters beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the car, like I'm like, okay, I've done enough to like give me the roster. Just let me see.
Yeah.
It. If it's a home team that I know, well, a lot of times you're only having to really focus on one team, because if you're doing a season for a whole team, I mean, I can go through a roster without even looking at the sheet,
Right.
because you see it so
Yeah,
much.
right.
But other teams, it's like get some pronunciations and then just gotta roll with it. So.
Yeah, that's just, it's funny because my little brother plays baseball at Butler.
Yeah.
And his last name is Wrights, but they
Yeah.
call him Reitz. And this is actually his second year, and he's yet to correct him. So he's just known as Reitz.
See,
now.
it's the like, I hate that for the athletes, because like, I mean, it's a mental side of thing. Like when I played high school ball, like I loved like hear my name called, and like I could only
Right.
imagine like it being wrong, and I'm like, okay, well then stop,
Yeah.
stop saying it. So, I mean, it is. What
Yeah, I mean, it's partially his fault though too, because he could correct him. Like it's even the guys, his buddies on the team.
I mean, you
know?
could go up there and say something, but like before the game, hey man, it's this or it's that. And
right.
They don't, so it's like.
And it's baseball, so it's it's.
You hear it once,
right,
every 2, maybe 3, 4 innings.
Right.
So
when you're announcing though, do you have a favorite sport that you like to do?
I like volleyball, man.
Really?
Like I think it's, and people are like, when people say this, like, oh, you would, and I'm like, bro, I promise you, like it's not
I
like
didn't
from
think
a,
about that,
like
but
I don't like, you don't understand, like I can't focus on things like that. They're like, oh, you did Bellarmine volleyball, I guarantee you like volleyball. I'm like, dude, it's not like that.
Right.
Like I have to focus. First of all, it's a professional aspect, so like I don't look at anything like that.
Right.
But secondly, I'm like, do you understand how quick it is for like all this stuff to happen? And volleyball is just, if you've never watched volleyball, for like people watching this, go watch a game of volleyball.
It's kind of hard to follow.
Well, first of all, it's so entertaining. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Like you understand how hard and you get to sit right above the net, so you're seeing how hard these balls are hitting. I'm like, I would rather take a fastball 95 mile an hour to the side than sit here having to just get teed off on girls with a 40-inch vertical just sitting there just smacking it down. But it's so fun because like there's no like down moments. It's just boom, 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 and it's something that I've kind of internalized, and like I think that I'm probably better at volleyball than probably all the other ones out there, and I'm pretty much kind of done all the other sports, so it's.
So now that we know like volleyball is your favorite, do you have like a favorite school or event that you like?
So I've done Mercy for the past 4 years. Unfortunately, that was my last year. Last year, I've got an opportunity in the wings that I'm excited to announce here in a couple weeks when they give me the green light. I'll probably be doing Bellarmine again this year. Hopefully Louisville calls. I think that Louisville has an opening. We'll kind of see how that. It's probably one of those things that I kind of look at. I'm like, man, like this is what I want because this is a team. They went undefeated in the regular season last year. So I'm like, I would love to be a part of that. So it's been cool. Like doing Bellarmine has just been so neat because that was like my first like full permanent D1 gig. So like to me, it'll always be special.
And they just switched to D1.
Yeah, and it was like they transitioned, and their first year was the year like this is my going into the third season.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean,
did anything change for you when they switched over to D1, or is everything kind of just the same? It's just the title, really.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, I've been to some of their D2 games, and like their transition to D1. Charles Gazaway is their main guy. He does basketball and things like that. So the way Bellarmine did it is, the year that they transitioned to D1 was my first year, and actually I wasn't even planning on going into like doing anything Bellarmine. So I was a finalist for the Louisville men's basketball and women's basketball position, which was kind of took place all throughout that fall. Had some auditions, had callbacks, stuff like that, and Bellarmine had postponed all their sports to the spring, trying to deal with the pandemic and stuff like that. So. Long story short, I didn't end up getting the Louisville job, obviously, but that January I got a call from John Spagnardi, the Bellarmine assistant AD, and he came to me, or the SID, and he came to me. He was like, well, Charles, with Bellarmine having so much going on, Charles has got a lot on his plate with basketball, and we know you do volleyball. Would you want to do volleyball? So I'm like, it's funny how it's fun to see how things, like some doors kind of close just for others to open. So, I mean, I don't know what it was like before D2, but I know it's kind of been a little bit of a rough transition to D1. Obviously, trying to you're playing a whole different ball game, but it's been fun. I mean, overall, just the experience and to be given the opportunity. Like I'm a person that like really appreciates the journey. Like I might get caught up in the end result sometimes, but like the journey is what means the most to me. So,
and as far as like getting those jobs, is that just who you know, or is it kind of like an Indeed thing?
It can be
like a standard job, or is it you just know someone, call up the AD?
I think it's a lot. I wish it was an Indeed thing. I think my resume looks pretty decent, but I think in almost any aspect of like the career field, like you can go to any career field and like make a case that it's more important about who you know, right?
Right.
But especially in like the sports media realm, because you could be qualified as hell. I mean, you could have a you could have a doctorate in communication. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if that's a thing, but you could have a doctorate in it. But like, I mean, I've gotten more opportunities by knowing more people, like knowing some people at Spalding, knowing people at Bellarmine. Getting to know people at Louisville has just opened more doors than probably. I mean, obviously you have to have a product of sound that they like,
Right.
but knowing those people has I mean, it's not even close for me. But like I said, I wish it was so simple as like clicking apply now on
Yeah.
Indeed and just be like, hey, here's a sample tape, or here's how I sound and stuff like that. But yeah, it's all about who you know.
So were you more excited when you kind of first started off with that Mercy role, or would you say now to where when you got that first big job at Bellarmine? So.
Yeah, I think that I think there's levels to it. For Mercy, it was all about my sister and trying to make the home field atmosphere much more saturated and epic for her.
Right.
So that will forever, for me, like,
This is awesome. Yeah.
kind of remind me of why I'm doing it. And it's funny, we talk about how things come full circle. She just graduated from Georgia Tech and she played softball there, and they brought me in as like a surprise thing senior weekend to announce one of her games. And it was like, for me, like, going from, she graduated in 2018, and like I started to really blow up like going into like 2019,
Right.
2020. So it was cool to see things go from where they were, and also to be reminded of why I started in the first place. So there's always going to be that appreciation for it. And I think everyone kind of chases that feeling of, in any aspect of life, like chase that like ultimate high that you get from something, hopefully something legal.
Yeah.
But, like the ultimate high, like for some people it's, music. Or for some people, it's like working out. I know you're big into working out, like the ultimate high that you get from that. So whatever just makes you feel alive. And I think that, there was a time where I kind of bypassed the journey and was like, kind of let the, getting or being a finalist for the Louisville job, like I let that get to my head
a little bit,
and I let it like pump myself up to make me, out to be more than something that I was. And I think that like me kind of getting a dose of reality and realizing that I didn't get it kind of brought me back down to earth, recalibrated my mind, made me realize, hey man, it's all about the journey. It's all about the people you meet along the journey in any aspect of life. So the end goal will come. Whatever you're trying to get will come. Whoever the hell knows what that's going to be. But you just appreciate the journey, so when you do get there, you don't look back and think, damn, it's not like the view's not as good as I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So to answer your initial question, I mean, I think it's different. I think I appreciate my beginnings more because it shows how far I've come.
Right.
But I mean, there's nothing that can compare to announcing the first game in the Yum Center or announcing at Cardinal Stadium for the first time, because like you grow up going to these places and hearing Sean Month is the guy who did it at Louisville, and it's like, this is what I've wanted. So it's just been such a sweet opportunity.
So is this something you've always kind of wanted to do, or is it, like you said, just when you started there at Mercy?
It's kind of like, I always thought it was cool what Sean did. And, he's the one who, the three call like at the Yum Center and the voice you hear at Cardinal Stadium. So like it's always been kind of something that I thought was neat, but I never truly thought it was like a legit thing. And even when I first started at Mercy, I was like, I mean, this is just kind of for fun, for being goofy, just for my sister. But man, it was it kind of took off quick, and like I said, I had to learn on the fly with it. So like, I didn't really have any expectations going into it, so I had to kind of figure out what I wanted as things went along. So it's probably been after, I'd say 2019 is when I realized, okay, it's not necessarily a career path that you're going to get rich on, which I mean, I lived this life to want to get rich as well, but like, I've had, job opportunities that have been willing to make accommodations for it. And that's something that I've wanted. I'm like, okay, I want to get rich, but I also want to have this as well, because like it's something I'm like, I've come all this far now. Why? What's the point in stopping now? And you're young. I mean, you're 24 years old. So why would you even consider that? So.
And I want to backtrack a little bit to how you were talking about I don't remember his name, but the guy who said three. Yeah,
Sean Month is his name.
So those things, do you pick up those from other announcers, or do you kind of create your own? Because I know Louisville, the most popular one I guess I could think of is the Luke. Is that something you kind of come up with, or you play off the crowd a little bit, or?
I think everyone has their own style.
Yeah.
There's some things that I take away from others. Like I've taken some stuff away from Sean, especially like in football. Doug, Willem, and Lance McGarvey are the current women's and men's basketball announcers now. And there's some things that I kind of look at and I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. I like to think of it kind of like, like if you're if you're playing basketball and there's something like your friends do. I mean, hell, I know you and I are pretty big into basketball and stuff like that. So like there's some things like some moves I'm like, damn, I kind of have to learn how to do that. But like there's some things like that like they work better for you than they work better for others and vice versa. So like it all depends on the voice. Like like my voice sounds a little different than those guys, and like my voice is still developing. Like I think I was reading somewhere like your vocal cords and your voice doesn't truly like get to where it's supposed to be until like you're 40. So
really?
I'm like, that's even wild to me. So I guess I'm only can go up from here. Yeah. So I mean it's one of those things to where you take some things away, but you try not to be an imposter. Like you try not to jock someone's style all the way. Like, I mean, Drake's not going to take DaBaby style and vice versa because they have their own flows. They have their own things that work. So, I mean, it's neat to take away things from other people because some calls are pretty dope. If I could do the Sean Mall 3 call, I would, but that man's voice is, I mean, I imagine that's God's voice is what I hear when I'm going to heaven. But, I mean, it's just a matter of just kind of, there's a fine line. You can take stuff away, but you don't sit there and just try to copy somebody because, I mean, it's just other people like, what the hell? Yeah. Like, stop, bro.
You won't even know if that's you anymore.
Yeah, no, it is like that. And there are some people that do that. I mean, some people will mimic people because they think that it's going to get them more popular, and it's counterproductive because people are like, be yourself. And I've had people tell me that because when they hear the voice, they're like, they think I'm trying to be a mimic. I'm like, buddy, I promise you, it's not that. Like, have a conversation with me. I will simply go down to that voice and then come right back up. I mean, it's.
And then people learn to love that style too, coming from the announcer, to where the crowd is now mimicking what you have started.
It's always people like comfort. So when they hear like a certain voice, I mean, Sean was there since 2003.
Really?
So and the guy before him was there for 20 more years. Something like it's always hard to be the guy that replaces the guy.
Yeah.
So in any aspect. So for me, and for the other guys that got in, I mean, I've had conversations with them. I'm like, just they'll come around to you, but they're still kind of in this comfort zone to where they're trying to let go of the things that they're used to. So, I mean, you have to just be patient.
It takes time.
And the appreciation, after doing multiple seasons. Like I know, like in year 4 at Mayo this past year, people appreciate me more than in year 1.
Right.
Because they know it now. They expect it, and that's the big thing.
Yeah. And I kind of want to get away from just the announcing for just a second, just to finish it up and kind of talk about the writing aspect of things. So kind of, I know you do something with Houston or in Houston.
A little bit everywhere, man.
A
little bit of everything.
Is that just mostly writing blogs and stuff like that, or?
So it started out that way, and actually kind of sports writing was probably like, I started like after junior year of high school. It was like somebody approached me and was like, hey man, why don't you come to a couple Louisville City games with me and like do some like recaps and stuff like that. And I realized that like, I might not necessarily have like a true passion for it, but like I feel like I'm decent at it. And it kind of grew and stuff like that. So words have always been, not necessarily a challenge for me. A lot of it was like blogs, like doing like NBA draft stuff. Like I absolutely love like the draft and the Rockets. Like I love the Rockets. So I used to do a lot of blogs for that. Kind of toned a little bit down when I got, I was like I filled in as a beat writer for a brand called Cardinal Sports Zone, if you've heard of it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Look at me. So I was a beat writer this past year, went to every home game up in the press box, got to do interviews and talk to coaches and players and stuff like that. So that was pretty neat. Admittedly, it's kind of toned down a little bit just because, like, I mean, it's not that I dislike sports writing. It's just, in terms of priority-wise.
Right.
Like, it's like announcing, it's like podcasting, hosting radio shows, like all in here. And then you have sports writing kind of down here to where, like, now it's kind of based upon like interviews and stuff like that. Like I'll do a lot of feature pieces. Yeah. Talking to players, talking to coaches. Like I like to tell their stories. I like to give them the opportunity to, let people see them outside of just what you see on the field or what you see on the court, because like that's a person that's gone through, you know, their trials and tribulations, and like the thing that I focused on is let me give you the platform to tell it if you're comfortable with telling it. Some people don't like to tell their stories. So I'm like, if you want to tell your story and let people get to know you, and it's like, and I think that the best thing for me is like for people to comment and say, I never knew that about so and so, and it helps me to see them in a different light and appreciate their legacy. I'm like, that's all. Like I said, man, all this stuff, it's as much as it is, like, it's not about me.
Right.
Like, it's all like it's genuinely like I truly like investing in people. Like, I think that like people have all their priorities wrong, because I think like we're put on this earth to like really invest in people, invest in each other.
I agree.
And there's just so much hate and jealousy out there, man. I'm like, man, I don't give a damn, man. I hope we all make it.
Right.
Like, I hope we all succeed, bro.
Table.
Like, there's so many seats at the table. There's so many plates to be filled, man. Just eat with me. Like, I don't just, and I'm like, people are like, don't you feel a certain way about, you know, giving like to maybe a competitor and stuff like that? I'm like, I don't look at it like that, man. Like, people aren't competitors to me. Like, I'm trying to be just a decent person, because I know that like people have stuck their neck out for me. So I'm trying to stick my neck out for other people. So not to get too far off track, but like, yeah, sports writing for me has kind of turned into helping me help others.
Right.
And really like give like Louisville volleyball, shedding a lot of light on their season this past year. Well, I mean, I've had some interviews with some other, you know, female student athletes in sports that don't necessarily get the recognition that I think they deserve. So like for me, that's important, because like, you know, for an athlete to go through their seasons and like, you know, put in all the hard work and just maybe not necessarily get the attention like a football or basketball. I mean, I'm not born yesterday. I know how things work, but like just getting them the opportunity to like for the first time, be like, hey man, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about your past, about, you know, maybe your faith, you know, what that plays a part in it. So, you know, sports writing, it's taken on a little bit of a different role because of how I see the world. Like, I see the world differently at 17 than I now see it at 24. and a lot of stuff has happened. Like, I mean, unfortunately, it feels like the world's kind of continued to go down to where we have to start investing in each other, man, because like it just seems like there's so much just negativity and that negative energy and that toxic energy. So I mean, sports writing is just kind of, you know, giving me an opportunity. Everybody has a different opportunity to kind of to give it back. And writing's kind of been that way. And
it's honestly, it's kind of similar to like what I like to do with the podcast.
Yeah, man.
Like, it is shedding light, but it's not me bringing my platform to someone else, because the platform might not be as big as the guest per se, like this situation. But it's just anyone who does want to hear about your story per se, and
it's about the first time I've been able to tell it. So,
what it's like on the back side of that. So
it's been, like I said, definitely appreciate it, man. Because like I said, like people have asked me, is like, how'd you get to where you are? And I'm like, buddy, it'd take 30 minutes on a podcast to tell you how I got to where I am. So it's been pretty wild. But like I said, man, the podcast got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And I kind of, before we did this, I was listening to some of your podcasts on YouTube, and I just kind of went back, and it was very inspiring to see like those first videos had, you know, that 20, 25 views, and then now like your videos are getting up to 2,000 views each.
It's extremely humbling to see, like, go into like the data analytics and see that. But like it didn't start on YouTube. Like, it started audio wise, and like it was getting like less than 10 views an episode, to the point where like after the first month, I'm like, I'm going to my editor, or not my editor, but like my marketing guy, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
He's like, I think you got to understand, it's like, you're not putting in the work for right now. Like, you're planting the seeds for 6 months from now, because you have to understand, unless you're Draymond Green or, you know, Skip Bayless or Colin Cowherd or Stephen A. Smith, like you have to build your reputation. Like, all these guys started out and they did the same thing. I mean, maybe not Draymond Green because he's a basketball player, but like all these media guys. Yeah, I mean, like, in his own right, I mean, like, yeah, he made his way up through basketball and stuff like that, to where people might not have known him until he became famous. So it's like, you know, it stuck with me. You know, he says, like, you're literally planting seeds. Like, I started it last August. He's like, you're planting seeds for the spring, and like that kind of resonated with me. I was like, you know, maybe you're right. And when it hit YouTube, like, you know, the same kind of things. Like, it took a while for it to launch, and now it's like seeing videos get 2,000 views and over 20 comments, and like people commenting like, "Yo, this is a podcast that all Wolf fans need." Like, it's wild to me because like I don't see myself in that respect. So, the podcast and like I said, it's been fun to just see it come off the ground. I mean, it's always fun to see anything you're doing.
Right.
You see the work you put in and like what people don't realize, and then you finally start to see the results kind of materialize, and it's extremely humbling, man.
Yeah, and you've come a long way, and it's awesome to see you grow from those seeds.
That.
So, just to wrap it up, if you want to let them know like where they can listen to your podcast, where they can follow you, and
yeah, man. You follow me at @dpence_ on Twitter. The Locked On Louisville podcast. You can find it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spot, any audio streaming service you could probably find it. Not necessarily sure how many it's on, but yeah. Man, at @dpence_ is where you can find my Twitter, all of my Louisville coverage. And stuff like that. Go to a local high school or Bellarmine game.
Yeah, and you might
have a percent chance of maybe seeing me depending on where you're at. So, yeah, man, love it. It's been a lot of fun to be on here, man. Yeah, man.
Thank you for coming out.
Oh, got you, man. Appreciate it.